This week on 47 Motorsports, we're going to combine two videos into one because we have a lot to do and we don't have time to do two videos. This week, we are going to talk about what it's like to daily drive a 1990s rally icon, or JDM icon, or whatever. Basically, it's both, isn't it? We're going to talk about just how difficult it has been, how easy it has been, how much it's cost, roughly, because the people in the Jag video were very particular about me adding up costs. So this will be a rough cost. That means some of the costs, roughly, estimates, in case you're confused, Mr. 70-year-old man who wanted to watch a video about the Jag from the good old days. Why didn't he include the cost of this? How did he include the cost of that? Because he's 24 years old trying to insure a Jag. That's why he included that. Anyway, as well as talking about the day-to-day costs and really experience of daily driving one of your childhood dream cars, we're also going to be fixing it because it's broke, which is a good start. We're going to be fitting to the front end, we're going to be fitting 2 shocks, 2 springs, 2 top mounts, and doing an oil change and a wishbone, which is actually quite a lot of work in a short space of time.
That's quite a lot of work for a day, yeah.
Yeah, which is why we're trying to get it all done at once.
Right now.
So join us as I talk shit and get shit done.
Nice.
Cue the music. So if you haven't already, you might want to check out our earlier video called ME Building the Gran Turismo Dream, which is kind of an overlook as to what we've got here. But for all intents and purposes, this is my 2000, 2001, 1998, that's a long story, Subaru Impreza GF8 WRX. Basically, I built it because I spent my childhood playing Gran Turismo 2. Cashmere yellow was the coolest color on the Subaru and I had to have one for myself. Most people buy these and they're just a fun toy, whereas for me, I built it and it was my everyday car for the last year. Now, MOT, or state inspection to you Yanks if you're watching this, is just around the corner. It actually failed, but we'll get into that. And basically, these are things that I wanted to tidy it up with. But I thought I'd also talk a little bit about what it's been like daily driving a thirsty 2-litre turbo petrol as a 24-year-old in Ireland where nothing is cheap. Needless to say, my bank balance hurts. But anyway, we'll get into the things a little bit more than that as we get on, but for now I'll introduce what we're going to be doing today. So I already talked a little bit about what I was going to be doing, but I actually forgot a couple things as well. Now, this is a front left wishbone. You may notice that this isn't the same as most Imprezas, I think, because, well, that you're used to seeing, because they would have had an aluminium one. That was for STIs, whereas this isn't a real STI, so it doesn't have one. Last year, well this year, adding on to the costs of repairs, the biggest killer on these cars is rust. And having went over a speed bump, or a pothole, I think it was a pothole, the wishbone was so rusted away that it actually split in 2 and I was driving home with a wonky wheel. So
nice.
Yeah, that one side was replaced right away, but at the time I didn't have enough money to get both. So, having got a job, because I'm not a useless freeloader anymore, I went and bought the other side, just as a preventative measure so both of them look good on the car. And, you know, safety. As well as this, we are fitting 2 new shocks, which have started to rust already.
Nice. That's that Japanese.
That is the JDM life, isn't it? We are fitting 4 KYB shocks. Now, I've already fitted 2 to the back. But today we are going to do the fronts. The backs were actually bad. The fronts could do with a replacement, so now I'm finally getting around to it. So 2 KYB shocks. KYB is kind of known to be the make when it comes to Subaru for shocks. They are basically factory fresh. So if you're looking to lower it or whatever, probably not the best method, but I kind of just want mine to be factory. So I've just gone for these. As well as this, since we're replacing these, I thought we'd go the whole hog. So I've got 2 new top mounts. One is necessary and I'll explain why later on, but look at that, that's cool. That's the job. yeah, I figured we might as well replace everything and have the car as good as possible. I want it to be factory fresh again. Then we have our springs. Now we are lowering her a little bit, purely because it was actually cheaper to buy really good brand lowering springs than it was to buy factory height springs. So I just thought, screw it, I might as well. These are Teen or Tien or 10 or whatever, I don't know how you pronounce it. Either way, they are a good brand. They aren't cheap ching chong springy boys. These are actually the real deal. They will lower it a little bit. Now, as you can see, well, you can't really see there, but you'll see in some shots, the back is a little bit lower than the front right now because the back has these already in. The front doesn't, so I'm hoping this will bring the front down a little bit and level it out a bit more. I don't particularly want to lower it because I drive like a bit of an asshole, but you know, it was cheaper and they're a better make, so I thought, why not? Plus the green's pretty cool and it's an excuse to put 10 stickers on the side of my car, so hey ho.
Yeah.
As well as this, we are replacing the front pads. I would have went with the more high performance brand, but we just didn't have any in work at the time. So these are Cavo. Cavo's a good make for Asian stuff. Again, we'll get into it when we're talking about the costs. I did have to replace all of the calipers, which was not cheap. But that is a curse of Japanese cars. But again, we'll get into that when we're there. So I thought new pads might be an idea. And as well as this, we mightn't get it done today, but if we do, that would be great. I've got an upgraded fuel pump. This is by Fuji Racing, I think. It says on it somewhere. Fuji Racing. God, I'm good. This is an uprated fuel pump. Now, usually you would get one of these if you are increasing the power. I'm not, but my old pump is, I think, on its way out. And again, it was as cheap to buy an aftermarket uprated one as it was to try and find a second-hand new one, because I wasn't able to find a new one anywhere. So I figured, why not upgrade it while we're there? It's not going to do any harm. If anything, it's going to just do better, I guess. Because it'll be working under less strain compared to what it's used to if it's not moving as much fuel. Because again, my Impreza is just standard. It's not modified in any way apart from a dump valve. So that's all of the parts. Let's get her into the garage, get her jacked up on axle stands, get started, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what we've done over the past year and what it's like to live with one of these. So, first of all the things I'm going to talk about, I'm going to start off with reliability. One thing I will say, and some of you might actually say this doesn't mean much for me, but genuinely this has been the single most reliable car I've ever had. Which meant I didn't need an engine every 5 minutes in my scale of things. But no, genuinely, right, it's never let me down, ever. There was one time before I did the whole conversion all on it, back when it was just a normal 2-litre non-turbo, the only time this car ever let me down was when I was trying to beat Colin McRae on a gravel road and a stone actually hit the radiator.
Nice. And
punctured the radiator. But that's not really the car's fault. No. That could happen in any car, so that's not really Subaru specific as such. But I do know from having been in all the groups, having seen all the memes, head gasket. I personally have not had a single problem with a head gasket in a Subaru, and I have had 3 Subarus? 3? Technically 4. I've had this one, the grey donor car of this one, the blue one, and then Jen's one. Jen's one didn't have a head gasket problem.
Yeah.
It just had every other problem. But it was bought broken, so that's not really the same, you know. But genuinely, I've never had a problem with this car. Everything has been very, very good on it. I did have one problem with the radiator, again, but it was my fault. I was replacing the silicone hoses. Well, I was putting in silicone hoses. And this is something you need to think about when you're doing a car like this. Unless you put all new stuff in it, everything in this is at best 20 years old.
Yeah.
So plastics are brittle. Things might get a bit rusty. And what I did was I have a new radiator to go onto it, and I still haven't fitted it yet, but I broke off this tab here.
Oh yeah.
Which meant that it just didn't seal properly. So we did a ghetto fix on it to get it driving again. But that's genuinely the only time this car has been off the road for any period of time. It really has been a very, very good machine. That's not to say it's been perfect. It hasn't been perfect. Being a Japanese car, it has leaked a lot of oil. Yep. Burned a lot of oil. Well, it's only burned the oil because it leaked onto the exhaust and it burned it that way. Yeah. Which is something we're going to try and fix today with this when I do my service. Rocket cover gaskets are a thing that go on these. but I've replaced both of them in this and it's still doing the thing. So to be quite honest, just as a stopgap, I'm going to try this stuff. I have used the power steering stuff on our camper van before and it worked perfectly, I must say. I was very impressed. But I am aware that the way this works is that it swells out the seals to create a seal, which means that the seals are fucked after you've used this. Like, so if it starts to leak again, you are going to have to replace the seals.
Yeah.
But realistically, at some point, I would like to take this engine back out and just tidy up a lot of stuff because the engine bay is not the prettiest and stuff. But that's down the line anyway. But yes, as for reliability, honestly, I haven't had a single problem with it. False. I've had problems with brakes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's something. It's a Japanese car thing. It really is. So you're going to get that with any JDM car from the time. Bear that in mind. I had to replace all 4 brakes on this, which maybe wouldn't have been so difficult if it wasn't for the fact that somebody had upgraded the front brakes and I didn't know. So trying to find the right caliper was a total pain because I was just trying to get it off my VIN, my chassis number, but obviously it wasn't the right ones. So that's something you need to think about if you're buying one of these 90s JDM cars, is that there's a pretty good chance they're not going to be all original.
Yeah.
Somebody might... It was the thing at the time that people were modifying these, so unless you can be absolutely sure that it's all original, assume that it's not. So just be very, very careful when you're buying secondhand or new parts for these, that it matches what you're trying to replace. Now sure, I could have put on a full set of calipers that were what it's meant to be, but I kind of liked having the big 4-pot calipers.
Yeah.
You know, they look good. So just bear in mind, I had to replace all 4 because they were sticking and seizing because of rust due to age. So just bear that in mind. I'm going to start now taking off the wishbone because we really need to get a start on this.
Okay. Let's do it.
So we'll start with doing the wishbone because the wishbone is probably the easiest of the things we're going to do.
Yeah. Well, what I meant was, does the spring need to be compressed before?
Oh, no. That's just going to come out as one whole shock.
Oh, okay. Not like a Merc then.
Not like a Merc, thankfully.
Nice.
So having talked about, reliability, the next thing I want to talk about, which is quite a wake-up call for me, I'll be honest, maybe you're used to this, but I don't mean you specifically, Connor, I mean the viewers.
I'm not used to anything.
Is parts don't break very often on these, genuinely. If the car is in any way looked after, which this one wasn't really, parts don't really break, but when they do, God, are they expensive to replace. Now, the new set of calipers for this was, I think it was £200 for the fronts alone.
That's dear. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Merc prices.
Yeah. £200 for the fronts alone. And I think nearly 200 quid again for the backs.
Yeah.
And then, what else have I had to replace? This wishbone.
How much was that?
Wishbone on a Mark II Golf, for example. Now, my only comparison sake is Mark II Golfs for the obvious reason that's what I've always had. But wishbone on this was about 75 quid.
Yeah, again.
No ball joints, no nothing on it, just a bare wishbone.
Yeah.
And on a Mark II Golf, the same wishbone was about 20 quid, maybe less.
Yeah.
So
Merc 192 wishbone was 85. So.
Yeah, that to me is kind of
So you're paying Merc prices.
pretty
really.
much. You're paying Merc prices, and you have to hope that you can get them.
Yeah.
Break apart.
Which isn't a problem with Mercs.
Fair enough, actually.
Yeah.
That's because Mercedes is common. Now, again, I'm speaking from, I don't mean common in
Yeah, I
that way.
know.
Again, I'm speaking from an Irish perspective here, but Subaru is not that big of a company over here.
No, I suppose they're not.
So getting parts for Subarus isn't always easy. Mm-hmm. And I know I work in a car parts place. Now, I'm quoting you whenever I say, oh, it costs this much or it costs that much. I'm talking retail price, just so anybody who's watching this would know.
Yeah.
And we have no access to a Subaru parts link.
Really?
Nope, none. So that is why I struggled so much with trying to find everything. Because I had to just know it all myself.
Yeah.
If you're going to be buying parts for these, I think it's fair to say you need to be prepared to do the research yourself. Because the guy behind the counter is not going to want to be bothered.
Unless it's you.
Well, unless it's me. Genuinely, as soon as the word Subaru is mentioned in work, they're sent to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, just be aware, parts are expensive. They don't break often, but they are dear. I bought 4 shocks for it as well.
Yeah.
That was about 400 quid.
Oof.
Yeah. Top mounts were nearly £100 for a set of 4. Just everything is dear. It's out there, and there is a place called Import Car Parts online. I'm not sponsored by them, but genuinely they're the only people who've been able to help me with this.
Yeah.
They have a very good selection, but they're reasonably priced. They're not crazy cheap, but parts for these just aren't. So get that idea out of your head if you think they're gonna be, you know. But again, if it's your only car, then you probably don't mind.
No.
Whereas I have too many.
True.
So to me, it's hard to justify, whereas to you, you might be like, oh, I don't mind paying that, you know?
So this has been an STI for a year now?
No, it hasn't been. It's been a WRX. It's not an STI. Shut up. I have STI parts on it. Genuinely, I have STI parts on it. But it's not an STI.
Well, the question I was asking was, it's been a turbo for a year.
Yeah, it's been a turbo for a year now. That's a bit more fair.
What are you getting to the gallon?
Yeah, that's something you're going to need to be aware of. Fuel economy is not great.
In these days of dear fuel.
Yeah, right now, in this country anyway, fuel is
it's everywhere. Even in America, they're suffering. Not like we are, but...
What, are Americans crying because they have to pay the price that we've been paying for years?
No, because they don't pay that yet. But
they still don't pay what we pay.
They're not paying quite what we pay.
Yeah, this really is a choice you have to make. Can you afford, like, I know everybody say, well, if you can afford the car, you can afford to run it. That's not always true.
That's definitely not always true.
And I don't agree with that sentence at all.
No.
But on a run, trying to be as efficient as possible, the best I have seen in my turbo Impreza was a 28 mpg.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, 28 to the gallon then, that's excellent.
It's excellent whenever you think, oh, I'm driving a turbocharged rally car, great, 28 to the gallon.
Yeah.
It's not excellent when you consider how slow I was going to get that.
Yeah.
That was over 100 miles at a speed of 45 miles per hour.
Oh, 45.
I was being overtaken by Fiestas and stuff.
I was thinking 56 at least, you know.
Nope, that was me really going slow. But that is why I would say you have to really want to daily drive one of these.
Yeah, it's like you say, they're a weekend toy, really, aren't they, for most people?
For most people, it's a weekend toy, so to most people, that won't matter. But, you know, I want people to know what it's like to daily drive one. And in this country anyway, to be honest, I would recommend it because it's great and reliable if you have a short commute. Yeah. Or if you work from home, yeah, I'd daily drive it because you'll be driving it enough to keep it good.
Yeah.
However, it is expensive. I'm not going to sit here and tell you otherwise. It probably goes without saying a Subaru is going to be expensive to run, let's be real.
Well, what would you say the average is? The MPG?
On average, I'm probably getting about between 17 and 23.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that margin is being fair. But I will say, I normally drive this very carefully.
Yeah.
Because it's my everyday car, I want it to work and not break and stuff.
So what you're saying there is it could be lower than 17?
It could be lower than 17 if you are getting it as a weekend toy to thrash. In fact, I have definitely seen this lower than 10.
Yeah.
I won't tell a lie, I have seen it lower than 10.
And those are Imperial miles to the gallon for our American viewers.
Imperial to what? Oh, that's inferior. Never mind. But yeah. So bear that in mind if you're going to get one of these. You're going to pay the price. To me, it's worth it because it's so much fun to drive.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to drive and I know it's going to get me to wherever I need to go. As somebody who has plenty of experience of cars not quite making it to where you need them to get to, it's worth it to me knowing it's going to get me there. And it's cool, you know? It's cool as fuck, let's be real. But you're going to pay the price.
So sticking with the financial theme, what's the insurance like?
Let's not talk about insurance. I'm going to cut you there. We're not talking about insurance. I'm going to leave that in the video, but we're not talking about insurance.
Fair enough. At least the commenters then won't be like, you didn't say what it was in insurance.
Yeah, what did it do? I'm just gonna say, oh, we're not talking about that.
Well, the one thing I'll say about insurance is that it varies depending on where you are anyway. So,
It's way too much of a variable for me to bother including it, you know?
you know, if you live somewhere where the crime rate's through the roof, it's gonna cost
and you
more.
want to have a Subaru or something like that, like, yeah. Think wisely about that. Okay, we'll put it this way, right? I'm not getting into too much detail, but I am 24, employed, at home with parents because, you know,
Housing market.
millennial. Mods declared. How do I even compare it? Right, my other daily before this was a Mazda Unos, an MX-5, but an import. And so obviously imports are that way a bit more expensive. This is about the same price as my MX-5 was.
Yeah, it's weird asking you how it compares to the MX-5 because it's a different car.
It's a different class of car altogether.
Different thing.
But chances are, if you're interested in how one of these is, you're into Jap stuff. So you're probably curious anyway.
Yeah. So how did going from an MX-5 as a daily to this as a daily, like how is that?
Okay, so I should clarify. I've had this car now since I was 18. So
Yes.
yeah, that's how it feels to be this old.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've already daily driven this car as a non-turbo and as what it is now.
Yeah.
So I kind of half knew what to expect. It's kind of... They are two different vehicles, let's be real. But one thing I will say about this is you think the MX-5 will get a lot of attention for being an MX-5. However, I think the main difference between them is the appreciation. Now, people see MX-5s a lot more than you'd think.
Yeah, I do actually see them a lot, even though they are kind of classics now. They let them into Kilbrony, don't they?
That means nothing to most of our viewership.
That's
Kilbrony is the
local classic show.
it's the concourse. It's Pebble Beach. It is the Pebble Beach of Ireland. But yeah,
People go to Terra and you're like, what the fuck are they talking about?
this is really annoying me now.
There was a big debate on whether MX-5 should be allowed into Kilbrony.
Seriously,
There was. You were there. It's because they're not that old. And they made
they're 1989.
They had 1 year they had the cutoff, and it was like the year that the MX-5 came out.
So 89. So I shouldn't
or
really have
something.
been allowed to take my GTI that year.
Yeah, it was something like that. Of course, a Mark II Golf.
Came out in 84,
Yeah, so it feels that bit older than the MX-5.
which was brand new in 89. Fair enough.
Yeah,
But okay, so
I don't know what my point there was, but basically you see MX-5s a fair bit. Even
Yeah.
though they're like sort of classics now. And we're talking about first gen MX-5s. I don't.
Yeah, the good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, the main difference, obviously, between this and an MX-5 is space.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's not a two-seater sports car. But the MX-5, if you go into your local motor factors, is actually just as hard to get bits for as this was.
Is it?
Despite them having a dealer network and all.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that the MX-5 is a much more popular car, well, maybe it's just our distributor, but
Whoa, back up. Are you saying that Subaru doesn't have the glorious Eastwood dealer network? Two dealers.
actually there's two dealers in the country. Like, no, like, despite all that, the warehouse still never stocks anything for the MX-5.
Yeah.
So still really hard to get stuff. But yeah, basically the difference between this and the MX-5. MX-5 more expensive. They both rot this. They're basically the same, except one's less practical than the other. I daily drove the MX-5 through winter time, and I never had any problems.
Yeah.
I will say, I think the MX-5 was more fun. Because it's a two-seater sports car. In roundabouts, you're able to throw it out sideways and have a bit of fun with it. This is... The thing is, with Subarus, now this is a bog standard one. This isn't modified or anything. Obviously, it is a dump valve and the brakes are bigger. But to have fun in this, 9 times out of 10, you're breaking the law.
Yeah.
To have fun in the MX-5,
You're not breaking the
you're
law.
not going fast. They're two different types of fun. These are more of a cock swinging competition, to be quite honest. The MX-5 is you've accepted that you're never getting laid, so you're going to have a bit of fun at low speeds.
You're going to learn to cut hair.
Yeah. This is... With the MX-5, you've accepted you're not getting laid. With this, you really want to get laid and you can't. So you
bought a Subaru.
You bought a Subaru. And I own both, so I can say that. But
yeah.
Honestly, the MX-5 was more fun. I love this to bits. It's my favorite car of all the cars I have. But the MX-5 is definitely more fun.
Yeah. So has there been anything over the last year that the car hasn't been for you that it could have been? Does that make sense? I'm not talking about like mechanical letdown. I'm talking about, have you ever thought, oh, I need a different car right now? You know, from a daily driver point of view.
Well, one thing I will say, now I started driving this during the pandemic, but like right in the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I was unemployed, struggling with money and stuff, and you know, obviously, oh, it's not a good time to have a Subaru. Yeah, I know, but I did really wish that I just had something nice and diesel and sensible at times.
Yeah.
And now this maybe isn't going to apply to you if you get one in a different color, but there are times which isn't very me, but there are times I just wish there was something a bit less conspicuous.
Yeah.
But again, that's kind of more of a bright fucking yellow thing.
Yeah, that's the choice you make, isn't it?
That's the choice I made. Like it or not, it's the choice I made. But honestly, it has been... If it was a bit more efficient, obviously it doesn't have to be perfectly efficient, and I don't want all of this to just sound like I'm complaining about fuel economy, but one thing I did wish it was, if I had one complaint, is that I wish it could be a bit more efficient, because this car has genuinely done anything I've thrown at it. It's done big long road trips, it's done a lot of fun in the snow.
Yeah.
Definitely going to cut some shots to that.
Yeah.
It's never let me down. It has been the perfect everyday car. Genuinely, I mean, if you want to daily one of these, if you don't feel bad about it, some people feel bad about daily driving something like this.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because really it's the best thing you can do to a car is drive it.
Yeah, it does help them.
It really is, like, but I will say I've not had a single moment where I thought I wish there was something else.
Yeah, because it's an estate. It's a small estate.
It is a small estate.
Baby estate.
But when do you ever really need more? If you need more than what this can offer, you need a van.
124.
Yeah, but you're not really going to use any of that.
Never gonna use.
Like, I helped you move house in this. And,
yeah, that's right, you did.
And it was perfect. It held about as much as the wee van you were driving.
That's right, I forgot about that.
It really did hold a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And for the rest of the time, for parking and all that, it's great having something that bit smaller.
Yeah.
You put the back seats down, the back seats go nearly perfectly flat in this, and then you have a huge amount of space.
Oh, yeah.
So personally, I don't think you could ask for anything more.
Yeah.
Of all of the JDM icons of the 90s, now say you have the Evo, you have Skylines, you have, I suppose, NSX and all that, but realistically, of all of them, if you're somebody like me who does stuff all the time, doesn't just sit in his room and sleep next to an anime girl pillow, which a lot of guys who are into JDM stuff probably do. No offense, I'm one of you, it's okay. As a guy who does stuff, I think of all the 90s JDM cars, you can't get something better than this. The Evo never came as a wagon. The Skyline is way too expensive to even think about daily driving it.
Oh, what is? Did you?
Stagia maybe, but it's not.
Big wagon.
They didn't do a performance version of it. Like, you don't lust over anything Japanese.
No.
That isn't a Suzuki Wagon R or a Celica. TA22 Celica.
Even that I'm not that bothered about, like.
Well then. But yeah, I think of all of the 90s Japanese cars, if you want something to daily, the Impreza is the best choice. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anybody really can disagree with that. If you want an all-rounder, the Impreza is the best choice of all the 90s JDM cars.
What about a Toyota Avensis Estate?
Next question.
So just while you're in the swing of that, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
What's the elephant in the room?
Let's talk about rust.
Let's talk about rust, baby.
Because aside from head gasket problems, the big 90s JDM thing is rust.
Yeah, and I must say, even though I had this car on a spit and looked over a load of stuff, there's still hidden bits of rust. I'm gonna keep these done it away. How am I gonna remember which is which? They're both the exact same bolt, so it's fine. What was I gonna say? Right. As we've just said in our video there recently about 10 things we wish we knew, and we said buy-on bodywork was number 1.
Yeah, we did.
Honestly, Subarus are no different. In fact, Subarus are probably one of the worst. Main points. Back arches. Now, this isn't a buyer's guide for Subarus. I just want to point out, so don't be coming here expecting me to give you a full breakdown of it. Although if you want one, give me a shout. I bought enough of them, so I could probably whip a video up. But the only problem I've had with this really is rust. There hasn't been a problem on this that hasn't stemmed from rust.
Yeah.
For example, the brakes. That was because the back brakes rusted away, as did the front. The cylinders rusted.
Nice.
The back arches, they go on them, which I had to have repaired on this. The sills, they go on them, and unfortunately I got 2 rust holes in my sills and I've had them welded up. I'm waiting on a retest, but a car that's had this much work done to it and I got into MOT and that was the only thing.
Yeah.
Rust. So yeah, it is as bad as they say. I would say that things like head gaskets and all, some of that's bollocks. As long as the car is looked after, yeah, it's a common problem, but it's a common problem because these are usually owned by dickheads that don't look after them properly. And that's true. These are the cheapest point of entry to Japanese cars of the 90s, realistically, for something fast, which means the dickheads buy them, which means they get ragged and not looked after, which is why they break, which is why they get a shit reputation. Yes, that annoys me.
Fair enough, yeah.
But anyway, other than that, rust is the biggest problem, and I've succumbed to it. You probably will too. When I'm hitting this, there's rust falling to the floor, for fuck's sake. So, you know, you either buy one that's good in the first place or you get ready to do a lot of welding. There's no in-betweens really on these.
No, your sill holes that you failed on the last MOT,
Yeah.
they weren't visible, were they? What I mean was there was sill covers covering them, wasn't there?
Yeah, the problem with that was there were sill covers and they've been caught out with that one before.
We have too.
Yeah.
I have.
You like to hope that it's not like that, but it do be like that.
Sometimes it do.
It do be like that, like. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, unfortunately it was hidden. Now it wasn't fully hidden because obviously he was able to see it, but I didn't see it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, I'm glad he found it.
Well, yeah, because it would have got worse otherwise.
Yeah, I'm happy that that can be sorted now. You know.
Yeah.
Instead of me thinking I have this great car and it's really not and it's falling apart from under me.
Yeah.
Oh!
Did you hurt yourself on camera?
Oh, was that recording?
Yeah.
Yeah, I chinned myself off that. Ownership experience fact number 1, everybody hurts sometimes. Right, so here's our old wishbone out.
Right. Looks alright, really. Put it back in.
It does look okay, but I'd rather the new one was in because the other one did just looked okay and then it just hit the wrong pothole and just ruptured here.
Another wishbone on the Subaru.
What is that? Why has he got that plugged in? Why in the name of other God? So that's taking some of the badness off it. Now I'll get a bit of brake cleaner. Might as well use the clean rag because people will be like, how can we clean it with brake cleaner and then use the dirty rag to clean it?
What is this like long distance?
Right, okay. Now, I have had many different cars in my relatively short period of time of driving. I think, like, for somebody who's never crashed a car, I've had a lot of cars.
Yeah.
Now, I've had Mercs, of course, as anybody here will know, and Obviously, you're not going to beat a Merc, but this is, for all intents and purposes, a rally car, right? This should be harsh and uncomfortable and not nice. And being totally honest, that just is not the case. Now, I haven't added any extra soundproofing or anything to this yet. Get in, would you? But yeah, I haven't actually done any soundproofing to it, and other than like some odd noises, which I'm currently fixing right now by doing the suspension, it's actually really nice to be in. I would pick this over anything else I have for a long trip.
Yeah.
And that's kind of including your fleet.
My fleet?
Yeah. I actually would pick this over anything for a long trip because it has everything you need. This is probably the most unflattering footage of me ever recorded.
No, that's okay. We're looking at true work being done here.
But yeah, legit. It is perfect for all sorts of dealing, I will say. Whether it's town driving or otherwise.
Yeah.
Genuinely, I've not had a moment where I thought I should be in something else.
Yeah.
Because like, here's the thing, with it being a fast, revvy, enjoyable thing, like back row blasts and all are still fun.
Yeah.
So I don't sit and think to myself, God, I wish there was an MX-5 for this road.
No.
Because I'm in something that's as fun to drive as the MX-5.
Yeah.
But when I'm on a long trip, I'm very, very glad because it's not overly loud.
Yeah.
It doesn't drone, it's not annoying. Like, it's actually really nice to be in.
Yeah.
Would you just get in? Speaking of.
Yeah.
Now, because mine's leaking a bit of oil right now, town driving actually isn't super nice because it stinks of oil.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's expected.
No, that's fair enough.
Well, it's not expected, but it's just a...
Expect the oil leaks.
Yeah. Well, I did say that too, to be fair. But, yeah.
Right, now that that's gone, okay.
First time.
First time.
Flawlessly with no extra editing.
What's it like living with a boxer engine compared to a good old inline four?
Some things are way easier, I will say. Some things are absolutely great. For example, alternator. The placement of the alternator on these and the system for tightening and loosening the belts is brilliant. Right on top of the engine, right at the front.
Right.
Really easy to get at. And
Let me just double check that.
oh yeah, it's right there. So the way it all works is very, very easy.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay.
And
Checks out. I'm Rick Harrison.
I have to get a buddy down here to confirm that. Yeah, so stuff like that, brilliant. Some stuff, absolute nightmare.
What like?
Well, the obvious spark plugs. But I have learned ways. Now, obviously, they're not as easy as doing it on, say, a Golf, for example.
Yeah.
But they're not as bad as everybody makes out if you're willing to... I mean, you do get used to it, obviously. But what I do, the engine's held in with just 2 nuts at the bottom. I just undo those and then jack up the whole engine
You just let it out.
until the spark plugs are above the chassis, like, and then they're easy.
Okay.
Like, genuinely, like, everybody makes a big deal about them, but if you just do that, it's done in no time.
Yeah.
And I discovered that maybe the second time I serviced the car. So, like, it's not as if I've been doing it a difficult way for ages and it was a nightmare, you know? It's not that bad. You just have to kind of know your enemy.
Yeah.
But as for everything else, timing belt is nice and easy to do because it's at the front. A lot of stuff doesn't require taking a lot apart. A lot of your sensors and things are easy to get at.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, to be honest, I haven't had any problems with the boxer engine. The only annoying thing is expense. Not just because of rarity, but because there's fucking 2 of everything.
Yeah.
There's 2 rocker cover gaskets, there's 4 camshafts, it's just everything's doubled up. It's like, I suppose it's no different than having a V engine.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, for the most part, no, I've noticed no difference between having a boxer and having a standard inline or a V for that matter.
Okay, that's interesting.
All the horror stories are just from people who aren't used to them. I know I'm not claiming to be an expert, but like, I'm sort of used to them and I don't find them that bad.
Yeah.
Most of the people complaining are people in garages who like don't work on them.
Yeah.
So when one arrives, they're like, oh, these are shit, blah, blah, blah. Just because they're not used to it.
Yeah.
I suppose you could say that about anything, really.
Sure,
But I do think they aren't that bad, personally.
Now, certain cars have a reputation for being driven by hooligans. This
No idea what you're talking about, buddy.
could be one of them in certain circumstances.
Many circumstances. So it
You-
depends where in the world you are.
Yeah.
What size is this? You couldn't be bothered to hand it to me, no.
Too much of a stretch.
Okay. Anyway, go on.
Do you get much attention from the police?
The only times I've ever been stopped in this car were when it was silver, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I've not been stopped in it once since it's been what it is. Now, one thing I will say, whether it's true or not, but I did hear this from a policeman, so you have to kind of think there's got to be some truth to it. He said to me that, for the most part, Subarus are enthusiast owned.
Yeah.
The days of the 90s are gone. You know, they're kind of out of reach for chavs now. Chavs are driving like Boras and Golfs and things.
Yeah.
They aren't driving these because they won't put petrol in them, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So he was saying most of the people that own them are actually enthusiasts that look after them.
Yes, they're not just trying to stop you and
Yeah, because they know it's going to have good tires. They know it's going to be right.
yeah.
Because they are all looked after.
Yeah.
So he said 9 times out of the 10, they don't even look at them.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I can see the truth in that because I've never been stopped in it since it's been this big racy boy. But also you have to think about hiding in plain sight.
I suppose, yeah.
Like they're going to be thinking anybody up to something no good isn't going to drive something as memorable as a bright yellow Subaru.
Yeah.
So I think that plays a big part in it. That's something you got to think about.
Yeah.
Is that for the most part these are enthusiast owned. So I personally haven't experienced any real police troubles. But then this isn't. It looks in your face, but it's not loud.
Yeah.
Standard exhaust. It does have a racy dump valve, but I've been around the place loads in this. And they've never ever questioned it. They've never even talked to me about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those days are gone when it comes to these JDM cars. I think they're worth too much now
Yeah.
that people just don't bother anymore.
So, do you ever get any unwanted attention when it's parked? Do people mess with it?
Honestly, no. I mean, I'm very protective of my cars, but I haven't really. Cramp. These are the realities of working with cars when you don't eat enough bananas. No, for the most part, actually, I don't get much hate, but that could be to do with where I am most of the time. I mean,
True.
I don't normally park in big cities. My girlfriend's house is in Belfast, but it's in a wee side street. You know, it doesn't. If anything, you just get looks of distaste
Do you?
from
Do you find that?
from the
Older
older
people?
generation.
Yeah.
When they hear vroom, psh, vroom, psh. I should
Yeah.
literally just trying to parallel park.
They don't vibe with that.
They don't vibe with that. But nice 555 pieces. But at the same time, I mean, I haven't chavved this thing out in any way. You know, it's kind of just a standard car.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah, it's bright yellow, but you know.
Okay, so it's November 2021. E10 fuel's been standard for about 2 months now.
It hasn't been standard. I haven't seen it anywhere over here.
Yeah, everyone's doing it.
Are they?
Yeah.
That's what I've
A lot
seen.
of places haven't updated these stickers, but that's all you're getting now is E10.
Is it?
Yeah. That's all the refineries have been sending.
Even over here?
Yeah.
In the good country?
Most people here won't know because it's all diesel here.
That's a good point. So yeah, I suppose in this country that's only a shock to like enthusiasts.
Yeah. Honestly, well, like I was saying this to you the other day, about 60% of cars here are diesel, which is probably doesn't sound too mad to anyone from Northern Ireland. They just think, right, everyone has a diesel.
Yeah, sure. Everybody's diesel.
Everyone has a diesel, so you go, yeah. But actually, in the likes of England,
That's a big deal, I suppose.
England is about 60% petrol and then about 15% electric and only about 25% diesel.
Yeah. I mean, the majority of our audience is America and
But they're
UK.
not huge diesel consumers either in America.
yeah, so they're probably shocked to hear this too.
Yeah.
That's more what I meant. But the Irish farmers are big fans of diesel.
Yeah.
To be honest, well, I mean, I didn't even know until you told me.
Yeah, that's probably been on E10 for a good Good for you, Phillips, now.
So I can't really comment on that.
Well, it hasn't
I
given
haven't
me any...
noticed any running differences.
No, I haven't either in the marks, but the marks are okay with it.
Yeah, and I've not looked up if this is okay with it, but I do know that it's only really bad if you let it lie in it for a long period of time, whereas I drive this every day.
Yeah.
So if I were you and you're worried, I would add it to the list of things that don't matter if you daily it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be a pain. But nope, I haven't noticed any problems with that at all. Now, I can't speak for every JDM car of the 90s because I suppose this is as much about that as it is anything else. I'm going to break this, aren't I? Oof. But people running like high performance ones,
Well, yeah, then you'd start to...
then you might care a bit more, but this is just a normal car. You know, it's not... This isn't a big crazy horsepower build or anything like that. This is literally just an everyday Subaru from the time.
Do you ever throw Supreme into it?
Now and again.
Yeah.
I didn't notice much of a difference from Supreme, but I did notice a difference from putting in Octane Booster, which I know obviously brings it to the same thing, but I think this brought it up to higher.
Yeah.
And I did notice a difference. It definitely felt punchier,
Yeah.
but not enough for me to be all like, you need this in your life. Now, some people will religiously only run it on this, and to them I say, good for you. Clearly you're much better paid than I am.
Yeah, that's true. It is
Like,
dear.
it's a big difference.
It is.
Right now, fuel is at an all-time high in the country, and fuel now is more for standard fuel than... No.
Oh, no.
It's more for standard fuel now than it was for premium, like.
Yeah.
So I definitely won't be touching it, like. Alright, so let it down a bit. So Subaru's stupidest design, maybe it's a rally thing, I don't know, but personally I fucking hate it. On the shocks, they have the brake hoses going through the shock. Let's have a look. And that might like keep it better in line or something, I don't know, but what that means is if you want to take them off, you have to bleed your brakes and all that, and I hate that. So what I do is I chop them basically, but I didn't do that the first time on this, so those brake lines really aren't the best actually.
So they probably will need done at some stage.
They'll need done at some stage, but right now is not that time.
Fair enough.
So I'm sawing in at that so I can hack it out of place without having to bleed the brakes,
Yeah.
because I really just don't want to do that, frankly.
No, fair enough. That's a weird one then.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Now, these 90s JDM cars, mainly probably the Evo and this, they were made for rallying. So there are some niche things that you'd think to yourself, why the hell did they do that? And then you realize it's probably for some homologation thing.
Yeah.
For example, the brake lines actually run through the car, not underneath the car.
Oh, right, okay, so they're not exposed underneath.
They're not exposed underneath, which is good for them not deteriorating and rotting away, but such a faff.
Yeah.
It's probably for when they're rallying so they don't get hit by stuff underneath, but like the brake line in this goes up in here and then into the cabin. Well, the front ones don't, but the back ones go in through the car to get to the back.
Yeah.
Haven't had to replace any yet, and let's hope it don't, because oof. But yeah, stupid things like that can be annoying, so just be aware of that. So with the wishbone on, all sorted, with the two main shock bolts undone, just undoing this top mount, and then this strut should come out. Shut up.
Fuji Heavy Industries present.
Fuji Aerospace Design, thank you.
It's mad to think the Fuji's built a car.
Building it softly with their parts. Ruining my whole life with their rust, killing me. With their This is what you call Ghetto Life by Rick James. Putting on tension to undo that.
Yeah.
For future reference, a screwdriver is not a chisel.
No.
But in a pinch. Right, don't try this at home either. Especially if your aim with a hammer is as bad as mine. Oh, it's actually just held up with rust.
Nice.
So yes, you can see what happened. the stud actually was broke, so we put a bolt up through.
Right. Okay.
So it was a good idea at the time, but I'm much happier now that it's going to be right.
Yes.
You feel me?
Yes.
So, I'm shattered. What time are we on? It's only 5:30 actually. We're not doing too bad. Wishbone done. One shock done.
Well, one shock out.
Yeah.
Well, the next one.
Replace them with new parts. So
Shouldn't be too bad at all. Whack it in there right now.
We'll cut here and we'll come back in whenever the spring and top mount are done, because you don't need to see us do that. We've done it that many times now. So
true.
Yeah. So after way too long, although not too long in the grand scheme of things, but it did involve a blowtorch and some other things.
Yeah.
We now have 2 new top mounts, 2 new springs, and 2 brand new shocks. Which does take us on to our next thing we're going to do, which is the oil change, which brings me on to the topic of servicing.
Yeah.
Now, your average, say, Volkswagen can probably go 10, 12,000 miles without a service, really.
Yeah.
If you treat it right. These things are a bit more particular, actually, to the point where there's a sticker on the driver's side door that says, please remember to service your oil every 6,000 miles or 6 months, whichever comes first. Realistically, most people that have these aren't going to hit 6,000 miles in 6 months. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I've serviced it twice now. So that's where you have to think about service costs. Now, the oil filter for one of these is actually the same as a couple of Mazdas and a couple of Nissans. So the filter itself is actually very cheap. A lot of people insist on going genuine Subaru OEM. I think it's a bit unnecessary. I've just serviced it with Mala filters, which as far as I'm concerned is as good as OEM. They're not paying me either. Nobody bloody is. But as for oil, these things are a bit older and they're a bit less picky. I know that modern car... It's never good when there's parts left over. I know that modern cars are a bit more picky with their oils and have very fine oils, but to be honest, these things will run fine on regular old 530 or 540. Some people run 1040 depending on where you are.
Vegetable oil.
No, not a Volkswagen, and they don't take vegetable oil as oil, they use it for fuel. Dick. Anyway.
Just throw it in there.
Anyway, yeah. You do really need to keep on top of them though. They aren't that expensive to service. Plugs are once every while really, like, so people who complain about the plugs on them, you don't have to do it that often, like, so give over, grow up. But yeah, service costs aren't that high, but you do have to service frequently. Now I can't speak for all JDM cars, obviously, I've never owned them, but the MX-5 was the same. So just be aware that you won't spend a lot on regular maintenance, but you will do it often, so it might be a lot. And if you insist on using fancier oils and stuff and so on, yeah, the costs will rack up. But for me at the minute, a service on this costs about 20 quid.
Not too bad.
Well, 20 quid once every 6 months.
Yeah.
Not a big deal really, like.
Just think of it as a fuel fill-up.
Pretty much, yeah. Like it's and if you're in like us and you're doing a whole load of other stuff, you have the car up anyway. How long is it going to take to change the oil, you know?
Yeah.
Speaking of, I'm going to do that now. But yeah, I think that kind of covers the majority of it. There's not really a lot more to say about these, to be honest. Like, there's a reason lots of people in America daily drive them. Like, they're a bog standard car, really. Like, I mean,
yeah,
they're special, but they're not that special, you know?
Yeah.
There's still plenty of them around, and a lot of the parts are interchangeable between these and later models. Like, Subarus are like Legos, so parts availability is good. But yeah, but other than routine maintenance, there really hasn't been anything to it. Now, obviously, individual cars come down to how they've been treated and so on, and I do urge you to be very careful if you're buying one of these, because if it is a turbo, if it's not, well, actually, even if it is enthusiast owned, that's not to say the enthusiast wasn't at bell end. So just be very cautious as to what you buy in the first place. But routine maintenance, keep on top of it. These things will go forever. You'll pay the price in fuel, but you'll get dependability out of it. So it's swings and roundabouts, really. Yeah. I don't think that phrase is relevant there, but it's what the word
it works. It's okay.
Yeah. So all I have left now after fighting with that is to do the oil change, which isn't really entertaining enough. I mean, it's not going to be like the Fintail one where it all poured all over the floor.
Hopefully.
So yeah, we'll catch you next week whenever we do whatever we do, because we're kind of not really sure at the minute. But if you've watched this far, thank you very much. Be sure to check out the rest of the channel. There might be some stuff that interests you. If you'd like some more stuff about the Subaru and things like that, let us know in the comments, because obviously if you let us know what you like, we can make more of it. So yeah. So I've been Tomo Patterson. Behind the camera, it's been Connor Hughes. Check us out on Instagram at tomo.patterson and at Hughes Corporation. I'll put them down below me here. Make sure to describe our channel. Make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. It would really mean a lot. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you in the next one. Good luck.
Good luck.